Hello and welcome to Health Cloud Summer 18 release. We have some exciting new features to talk about. I'm Zaid Mahmood and I have with me.
Hi, I'm Mike Weber, also on the Health Cloud team. Great to be back here again talking about Summer 18's release.
Great. So by the time you watch this video, your Salesforce orgs would not have been upgraded to the Summer 18 release. We could be talking about some forward-looking features here, but please make your purchasing decisions based on what's generally available today. Great, so let's get to it. We have introduced permission set license in this new release. This feature was actually originally introduced in last release of Summer 17. We have made some enhancements to it, which we'll talk about. Then we have a brand new business API. It's an API which looks like Health Cloud and talks like Health Cloud. And it significantly reduces the work effort required for a developer to build a programmatic interface to Health Cloud. We also have a brand new HL7 Adapter, which is an industry standard for bringing in patient data. Then we have introduced integration of Health Cloud with Field Service Lightning, which enables professionals out in the field to access patient data. We are turning our Health Cloud console into Lego blocks. You can pick and choose the features that you like and use it in your custom pages. We have also added 3 more languages to our locales. And lastly, we have enhanced our care plan, both on the console side and also on the community component side. The Health Cloud Permission Set license was introduced in Summer 17. At that time, it was optional for existing customers, giving them time to go ahead and make the assignments to their users. With Summer 18 release, it is now required. It is a great feature to introduce so that you can control access of your users to the Health Cloud data. This means both the data access through the UI as well as through the API. For details on how to do the assignments, we have developer doc, through which you can do individual assignments on a user-by-user basis. Or if you have a lot of users, like hundreds or thousands of users, then you can also look at our tip sheet, which provides you mechanism to use Salesforce Data Loader and do bulk assignments. You can also go into your Health Cloud admin setup and view at the company information console, which will provide you the exact count of the license that you have outstanding and the ones that you have assigned. All right, getting to the exciting stuff of Business API. Like I said, our Business API is an API which looks like Health Cloud. What that means is that instead of having to deal with account or contact API to create a patient record, now you actually call an API which is to create patient. And this works for both our individual record type as well as person account. So no matter which model are you using, it is going to be supported. This is an Apex API, and it supports both the standard fields that you have on your contact or account objects or on your person account, or if you have created custom fields, it supports that as well. So I'm going to quickly show you a demo of how it's going to work. So Mike, you're not in the system. How about we add you as a patient to the system? Good. All right. As you can see, I am using this API to instantiate a patient, populating some fields. I've just shown 2 here, but you could populate other fields, and then just go ahead and execute. As I do that, I move to my org, and let's look for Mike Weber. And there you go. We have Mike Weber right there. So extremely simple mechanism to use this API. And this API is atomic. So in case your insertion fails, it will roll back and it will not leave any orphan records behind. This is another view of the same code. I wanted to highlight that you have support for custom fields. It is a name value pair. So as many custom fields as you've created, whatever data types are there, those are all supported. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
Great, thanks, Abe. Okay, folks, so keeping it rolling here, I want to talk a bit about what we did with modularization. Zabe talked about making Lego blocks of some of the features of Health Cloud, and this is going to be an ongoing initiative that will continue with moving forward through future releases as well. And where we got started with this modularization is on the patient card. So for existing admins, you may be familiar with a Lightning component that we call the patient detail for Health Cloud. And what that really was a combination of 3 different areas of functionality. One is navigation, Another is the patient info section, and then a third, which is this patient card that can go across multiple objects related to the patient's account and lift up the most pertinent data. So what we realized in working with customers is that they would like to be able to organize their page layouts in Lightning with different flows and different layouts for how these Lightning components should be positioned on the page. And so I'm going to just show you how we did that, and just to kind of bring home how modularization is meant to work. If I'm on Richard Rodriguez here, who's a patient, if I'm starting at his base record detail page, what I can do is I can go ahead and just edit the page from here, which takes me into my Lightning App Builder. And what this is going to do is it's going to load up the standard Lightning App Builder that admins are used to seeing. And on the left, we have all of our different Lightning components. And if I scroll down here, I get to the custom managed components, which is where Health Cloud Lightning components live. And the original Lightning component that has existed for some time is this patient detail for Health Cloud. And so what we've done is we've introduced new ones. So you can see here as I kind of roll over these, I know it's small because we're in a preview mode, but these are all now independent Lightning components. So if I wanted patient navigation over here on the right, I can drop it over on the right. Maybe I want patient info down below the patient card. So these are all now independent, and if I wanted to drag them on, you can see patient card, patient info, and patient navigation right there. So this is that kind of modularization of really making these Lego blocks so that way the experience can be tuned to whatever kind of custom page layout and overall application an admin wants to achieve with Health Cloud. So that's how modularization works. And one key thing to note about this modularization, now if I go ahead and jump back to the application, when I'm back here and I enter the Health Cloud Lightning admin app, what I see is my timeline view configurations, my patient card configurations. So when I'm configuring what data is going to display on the patient card, I can do that from here still. So all of the same configurations behind the scenes are still at work when it comes to these now individual Lightning components. The other thing that is still true is if I'm in my setup, I have had the ability all along with the navigation area of the patient card to be able to customize exactly what I want the experience to be with that navigation inside custom settings. And so inside custom settings, I still have this card view dropdown, which I can manage, and then I can adjust custom settings for how that navigation behaves. But now with this modularization, I can place that navigation anywhere inside of that console as its own Lightning component. So those are just some little tips around patient card configuration and how we've modularized it. So now moving on, I want to talk a bit about a large initiative around HL7 adapters. And HL7 is a healthcare industry standard for exchanging clinical data between different clinical systems, especially EHR systems. And what we did is we introduced an ability for a customer to take advantage of an integration engine that they may already have in place that is managing thousands, millions, tens of millions of HL7 messages already, and be able to connect it to Health Cloud in a relatively easy way. It requires minimal implementation effort, minimal coding, and a very lightweight knowledge of how to access Salesforce APIs to push that data in. So where we started with this HL7 adapter was the framework, just how do HL7 messages get transformed and pushed into Salesforce Health Cloud. So to do that, we started with a parsing structure. And so we understand now different message types. And the one that we focused on first to have out-of-the-box functionality is called the ADT message type. ADT is short for Admit Discharge Transfer. And so these are all the different messages that are generated by a clinical system when a patient first comes in, or when they're discharged, or of course when they're transferred to some other facility or other provider. So this is the message type that you would want to use as a customer to load patients into Health Cloud. And you can do that very rapidly. These messages are fired off as the admits or discharges or transfers happen within a hospital or healthcare setting. And so what we have now is this ability for a customer to convert that message using their existing tools. All they have to do is convert that to JSON format. And then from there, point that integration engine to call the Salesforce Health Cloud HL7 REST API. And then it will parse that message and load it in. So there are a couple of things that I want to call out before I show you how this is all structured, which is that at this point in time, it does not include HL7 CCDA or FHIR native support. These are other standards that can certainly be connected to Salesforce in Health Cloud. But this kind of out-of-the-box functionality of converting this ADT message is a very specific HL7 type. And the other thing here is that it does have to be converted into JSON. Most healthcare-specific integration engines have no problem taking an HL7 ADT message and converting it to JSON, but that is required in order to be able to interface with APIs. So with that all said, let me show you a little bit about how this is all constructed. And there is a lot of configurability of this as well. So where I'm going to start is with custom metadata. And inside custom metadata, we have a number of new custom metadata types that we're using in order to facilitate this processing. So the first one that I want to talk about is under the HL7 settings custom metadata. So inside here, we have a number of different mappings that can be adjusted. But the one that I want to call out here is the context parser. So when an HL7 message comes in, you have to derive the context of what type of message is this. Is it an ADT message? Is it an ORU message? Is it some other type of message that contains different data and information? So we can parse that and get the context for what type of HL7 message is coming in. And from there, orient the parsing towards, okay, this is an ADT message. We know what types of information we should expect in different segments inside an ADT message, and from there be able to kind of pass it on to the next step of processing. And that next step is really parsing the event itself. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back again to the custom metadata types, and you'll see that just above actually here on the one that I just clicked on, HL7 setting, is this HL7 parser mapping. And so inside here is where we have defaulted all of the different message types and segments, the events in segments that comprise an ADT message. And for those who are familiar with HL7, this will look very familiar in terms of all the different segments that we're processing here. And so these are all designed to support the most common and all of the typical formats that an ADT message is going to come in after it has been converted to JSON. And so there should be very minimal work needed of using these parsers, or maybe no work even needed to have this data show up in Health Cloud once you've got those API connections functioning. So there's a lot of mappings here, and these can all be modified. We've set this up to be as modular as possible, so that way somebody who is more technical and works perhaps on interfaces can tune the way that this parsing is happening to some kind of nuance to that HL7 integration engine. So these are how the parser mappings work, and then there's two more steps in this. And so I'm going to jump back to custom metadata again and just talk a little bit about what happens after it's parsed. And so after it's parsed, what we then have is we have we go back to HL7 settings for a moment, and we have something called a business mapper. And so at this point, we've parsed the JSON message, sort of in memory, if you will, and we're now creating the sort of structure of how that information is ultimately going to be loaded into Salesforce objects and rows of data. And so after that business mapper is invoked, then the final thing is to go ahead and do the the service orchestration, which is really the final kind of inserts or upserts into our data model. And that piece is also controlled here inside this custom metadata where we have a service orchestration setting. And you can see in this example of what will ship out of the box is there's 3 steps. There's the patients, there's the allergies, which also come on an ADT message, and then there's any encounters that can also be embedded in an ADT message. So it'll process in that order, and these can all be overridden by editing these the classes that are used if a customer wishes to introduce their own class or insert a class into these steps or process them in a different sequence. So there's a lot of different kind of components of each part of the pipeline as a message is processed and stored in Salesforce Health Cloud as objects and rows of data. And so we're giving admins or implementers a lot of control over this where that can all kind of live inside of Health Cloud instead of having to live outside in another integration engine and orchestration system. So that's a bit about HL7. And I would just close with saying that this effort is the start of being able to ingest even more clinical data. So, forward-looking, we look at wanting to be able to ingest other types of messages, such as things that would contain appointments or medications, also potentially standalone encounters and observations, lab results. So really being able to make integration a very simple thing to get data into Health Cloud so that way you can immediately start deriving value in terms of how you work with patients. So now moving on to the next item here. And this one I'll just talk about a bit and just be sure that everybody understands what we've added as part of Health Cloud. The Field Service Lightning application is a fantastic both console and mobile application combined. And there's a console experience, and then there's an Android or iOS mobile app that allows a field employee. In this case, if you think of Health Cloud, it might be a field nurse, somebody who's doing a home health visit, to be able to quickly bring up information on their mobile device on a native app and interact with it. And this is something that Field Service Lightning supports. And so what we did is we introduced some flows that are specifically designed to work very well with the Health Cloud data model. So that way a mobile nurse can quickly get into a patient's care plan. They can update, close tasks that might be part of that care plan right there as they're on site. And because of the great offline capabilities of Field Service Lightning as an application, it really supports the needs of these kind of mobile healthcare workers who may or may not have the greatest connectivity at the time when they're meeting with a patient. And they also need to be able to take these kinds of actions very, very quickly because they need to focus their time on working with that patient before they move on to their next appointment. So we've embedded those for customers who decide to use Field Service Lightning, so that way they have a very easy way to integrate the Health Cloud data model into that user experience. And you can see here just some examples of how this works, where we have, in this case, here's an Android experience, and you can see things such as the information about the patient's appointment, but then that person can drill down and see related information that would have come from Health Cloud, and then they can also do things like view care plan goals or close a task and see it in the context of what else is going on with that patient. So it's a very powerful way for them to be able to really take action quickly and kind of discreetly when they're working with patients out in the field. And then last but not least is that console experience as well. All of this work that's being done and the field service objects can be configured to also show up on the timeline. So when you're looking at a patient's overall plan of care, you can see that these particular things were done. This particular field service appointment is about to commence. All of those kinds of things can still be lifted onto a patient's timeline, so you have that full view of what's going on whether it's being done in Health Cloud or being done out in the field with a mobile app like Field Service Lightning. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about the overview of what else has changed. We also did make some smaller configuration enhancements and usability enhancements. There's not a whole lot to show in terms of course, we have localization of the new languages that Zabe already mentioned. The last thing that I would like to quickly show you is down inside the care plan, we now have the ability to keep track of status across different tasks more completely than before. So prior to this release, there were some situations where a care plan task, it has a state of either open or closed, and then there can be different statuses. And what we've now done is made sure that we're pointing towards the state rather than the status. So that way, if no matter what, you'll always have all of the tasks showing in the relative views, whether it's open or closed, and then any statuses that may map to open or closed states will all be captured in that view. So that's just an example of one small little change, and here you can see it on the internal view where these are the three choices. So any kind of open status would show up here, and then I could, of course, toggle to closed or all. And the same is also true if I were to toggle over to the community experience. So we've unified all of that. And there are a couple of other things that will be great to take a look at in the full release notes. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening in today. And we look forward to next release, the Winter 19 release. And Zabe?
Thanks a lot, Mike. I think that was a great overview. Very exciting features there. Thank you.
Great, thanks.